The city skyline burned with the fire of ambition, its towering glass spires slicing through the velvet night like blades of light, each one a testament to dreams chased and conquered. High above the restless streets, in the penthouse office of the tallest skyscraper, a woman sat, her presence as commanding as the empire she ruled. The CEO was a force of nature, her intelligence razor-sharp, her precision in deals surgical, her ability to read people almost uncanny. But tonight, her usual battlefield of boardrooms and contracts was replaced by a chessboard, its black and white squares gleaming under the soft glow of her office lights. Across from her sat a man who seemed out of place in her polished world, a man whose life was as far removed from hers as the stars from the city streets. Yet, there he was, his hand steady, his gaze unwavering, as the pieces between them stood poised for battle. "Beat me in chess, and I'll marry you," she had said, her voice a velvet challenge laced with a spark of something deeper, curiosity, perhaps, or a longing she hadn't yet named. The city outside thrummed with life, but inside that room, the air crackled with anticipation, as if the world itself was holding its breath. This wasn't just a game. It was a collision of fates, a moment where two lives, so different, could shift forever. If you're captivated by stories of unexpected connections, second chances, and the courage to defy the odds, hit that like button, share this tale with someone who craves a heart-stirring story, and subscribe to Midnight Tales for more narratives that ignite your soul. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, your words might inspire someone out there. He was no titan of industry, no polished executive. A single dad, his world orbited around his young daughter and the modest cleaning job that kept their small life afloat. His hands were rough, calloused from years of labor, his clothes were simple, practical, his demeanor quiet, grounded. But his eyes, they held a quiet strength, a kind of wisdom carved from the hard lessons of life, not from books or boardrooms. He hadn't sought out this moment. It began with a spilled coffee in the hallway, a polite apology, and a fleeting conversation that led to him fixing a jammed window in her office. She'd noticed him then, not just his presence, but the calm he carried, a patience that intrigued her. Then she saw it, the small, worn travel chess set tucked in his backpack, a relic from a life he rarely spoke of. That was when she threw down the gauntlet, half in jest, half in fascination, curious to see what this unassuming man could do. For her, the challenge was a whim, a spark of amusement in a life where victories came too easily. She had everything, wealth, power, a name that opened doors, but those wins often felt hollow, leaving an ache she couldn't name. For him, the stakes were different. Every move he made on that board carried the weight of his past, nights he went hungry so his daughter could eat, days he walked miles in the rain to save bus fare, moments he swallowed his pride to keep a roof over their heads. He wasn't playing for marriage, not really. He was playing for dignity, for the chance to stand as an equal, even for a moment, with someone who seemed to hold the world in her hands. As they sat across from each other, the room seemed to shrink, the city's glow fading until there was only the soft click of chess pieces and the quiet rhythm of their breaths. She, too, carried burdens, though hers were cloaked in luxury. Behind the polished facade of corporate success lay years of loneliness, relationships built on convenience rather than connection, a heart more fragile than anyone guessed. Perhaps that's why she issued the challenge, not just to test him, but to see if someone could surprise her, someone who didn't approach her with flattery or fear, but with raw, unfiltered honesty. As the game began, her usual smirk faltered, not because she was losing, but because she saw something in him she hadn't expected. His moves were careful, deliberate, not rushed or reckless. Pawns advanced with purpose, knights slept with precision, bishops cut across the board like silent blades. He played with a kind of unshakable determination, a strength that echoed the life he'd lived, a life of quiet resilience, of choosing to keep going no matter the odds. The city outside sparkled like a dream, but inside, the tension grew heavier with every move. She watched him, her curiosity deepening into something else, respect, maybe, or the stirrings of admiration. He wasn't intimidated by her power, her wealth, or the towering world she inhabited. He played as if the board was all that mattered, as if each piece carried a piece of his story. And then, in a flash so swift she barely saw it coming, he cornered her king. 3 moves. That's all it took, 3 brilliant, calculated moves that ended the game. Her eyes widened, not in defeat, but in awe. No one had ever outplayed her so decisively, especially not someone she'd underestimated. For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and electric. Then, a slow smile curved her lips, not the calculated smile of a CEO, but something softer, truer. This wasn't about the game anymore. It was about the man across from her, the strength she'd glimpsed, the truth he'd revealed without saying a word. If this story's tugging at your heart, don't miss out. Like this video, share it with someone who needs a spark of hope, and subscribe to Midnight Tales for more stories that remind us of the beauty in unexpected moments. Tell us in the comments, what's the most surprising connection you've ever witnessed? Your story could light up someone's day. The challenge had been a test, maybe even a trap, but what she found was something deeper, respect, and perhaps the beginnings of something more. In the days that followed, she found excuses to call him back, not for chess, but for conversations that stretched long after the office lights dimmed. She asked about his life, his daughter, the kind of courage it took to rebuild every day despite the odds. He never boasted, never asked for anything, and that humility began to chip away at the walls she'd built around her heart. What started as a game became a connection, a bridge between 2 worlds that should never have crossed. Weeks turned into months, and her carefully guarded life began to shift. She looked forward to his visits, to the moments of honesty in a world of masks. He, cautious at first, began to see her not as the untouchable CEO, but as a woman searching for meaning beyond the boardroom. It was in the quiet moments, the way she listened when he spoke of his daughter, the way he noticed her exhaustion and brought her coffee without a word, that something real took root. But the world wasn't kind to their connection. Her friends raised eyebrows, her board whispered doubts, and the weight of scrutiny grew heavier. A CEO and a janitor. The whispers were relentless, and she began to wonder if she'd been naive to let him in. Yet every time she looked at him, she saw the same unwavering strength she'd glimpsed on that chessboard. He had no wealth, no status to offer, but he gave her what she needed most: loyalty, honesty, a love that couldn't be bought. The turning point came one stormy night when her company faced a crisis that threatened to unravel everything she'd built. As partners fled and advisors faltered, he was the one who stood by her, reminding her that she was more than her failures, that her worth wasn't tied to the world's applause. In that moment, she realized the chess game had been a glimpse of something greater, a partnership built not on deals, but on trust. By the time the storm passed, she knew the challenge she'd given as a jest had become a promise she wanted to keep. Not because he'd beaten her in 3 moves, but because he'd stood by her in ways no one else had. Their lives didn't magically become perfect. Doubts lingered, challenges persisted, but they had something rare, a connection that defied expectations, a love that bloomed in the unlikeliest of places. He wasn't just a man who cleaned floors, he was a man who'd shown her what strength really meant. And she wasn't just a CEO, she was a woman who'd found something worth more than power. If this story warmed your heart, like this video, share it with someone who needs a dose of inspiration, and subscribe to Midnight Tales for more true-to-life tales that celebrate resilience and love. Before we go, we have a special request: comment below and share the most unexpected act of kindness you've ever seen. Your story might just be the spark someone needs today. Their journey wasn't easy, but it was real, and in a world that often feels divided, their story reminds us that sometimes, the most profound connections come from the most unexpected moves.